Today, we are going to tell a story widely discussed around the world, a centuries-old enigma that has been passing through generations and, as technologies advance, is broken when confronted with a code probably created in the 15th century that becomes more mysterious with each step of the research. But we are not going to show you the same old thing. We will show you a timeline, from its emergence, its possible authors with an unprecedented line of investigation involving papal councils, illustrious and unknown owners, the possible reissue of the original, the attempt's failure so far of deciphering, and what intentions may lie behind this mystery. Embark with us on this adventure, a journey through time, and help us break this, which is one of the most fascinating enigmas in human history. A book that everyone can see, but no one can understand. Travel with the Voynich Manuscript. During his visit to the Beinecke Library at Yale in the fall of 2013, Umberto Eco requested to see only one document, Manuscript 408, better known as the Voynich Manuscript. Perhaps the Italian novelist's interest stemmed from the kinship between the enigma of this codex and that of his masterpiece, The Name of the Rose. Both require their interpreters to have a rare mastery of medieval history, semiotics, and investigation. As he leafed through those 600-year-old pages, Eco may have recalled his 1980 phrase, "Books always talk about other books, and every story tells a story that has already been told." In the case of the Voynich, however, that story remains undeciphered, as no one has yet managed the most basic task. To read it, our journey begins in 2009, when researchers from the University of Arizona in Tucson used radiocarbon dating to determine that the parchment of the Voynich manuscript was created in a medieval production. Paleography and carbon-14 revealed a dating between 1404 and 1438. It is not possible to know the exact place of origin of the manuscript, but the vellum, the material used, could have been produced in any active European center at the time, possibly in Italy or Germany, as suggested by elements of the writing style and pigments. With about 272 pages, it has sections on botany, astronomy, balneology, cosmology, and recipes. Just like its content, the history of the manuscript is disputed and full of uncertainties. In this context, we will explore the three main suspects already known for the creation of the manuscript. But today, we will also meet a new name that may provide new clues for deciphering the code. This new hypothesis comes from the skills and technical knowledge required to create the material's content, given that throughout the investigation period, it was never claimed to be an amateur work in any of the fields of knowledge covered by the manuscript. Thus, the fourth name may be going unnoticed due to the lack of physical evidence, such as the letter found with the manuscript, which, if genuine, constitutes the only clue towards solving the case. Therefore, let us analyze together those who, in their time, had the means and motives to develop such a complex work, which even the most advanced computers today have not yet found answers to its enigma. Now, let's delve into the period between 1214 and 1294, the time when Dr. Mirabilis, or Roger Bacon, lived. He was one of the most famous friars of his time. In 1240, he joined the Franciscan order, which belonged to the School of Oxford. Thus, he studied at the University of Oxford and the University of Paris, where he became a doctor of theology and taught. He studied Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and Arabic to read ancient texts in their original language. In 1251, he commented at the University of Paris on the pseudo-Aristotelian treatise De Plantis, on trees. and wrote brilliant observations on Aristotle's physics and metaphysics while delving into the Arab authors who introduced Greek thinkers to Europe. In 1257, the Franciscan minister general, Saint Bonaventure, placed him under surveillance in Paris and prohibited the publication of his writings. Bacon, however, befriended the apostolic nuncio in the church, the future Pope Clement IV, who supported him. But with the death of the then Pope in 1268, he was persecuted and imprisoned for 10 years. Roger Bacon is not a contemporary of the manuscript. The clue that links him is the letter from Johannes Marci, found with the manuscript and addressed to Athanasius Kircher. Thus, could the Voynich Manuscript be a reproduction made in the 15th century, whose original was lost? Our second subject is named Johannes Hartlieb. He was a physician and author who lived between 1410 and 1468 in Bavaria, known for compiling medical and magical texts, such as in his book of All Forbidden Arts, the Buch aller verbotenen Kunst, where he addresses topics like witchcraft, alchemy, and secret medicine, including what he called the secrets of women, a set of gynecological and reproductive knowledge considered taboo or hidden in the Middle Ages. Your connection with the Voynich is conceptual and contextual, not personal. Hartlieb is cited in modern theories, such as those of Began Brewer and Michel L. Lewis, as an example of a mentality and practice of the time, that of doctors who dealt with secret reproductive knowledge using codes, ciphers, and hidden manuscripts to avoid punishment or ecclesiastical control. He represents a context where information about women's health was deliberately encoded or restricted, which resonates with the hypothesis that the Voynich was written to conceal this type of knowledge. Maria of Trastamara was born in Segovia on September 14, 1401, and died in Valencia on September 7, 1458. She was an infanta of Castile, the eldest daughter of King Henry III of Castile and Catherine of Lancaster. As the presumptive heir to the throne, she held the title of Princess of Asturias until the birth of her brother John. Gerard Cheshire's theory positions the manuscript as compiled by Dominican nuns as a reference for Mary and her female council. The manuscript would have originated in the Aragonese castle in Ischia between 1443 and 1445, a refuge for the female court governed by Mary during Alfonso V's absence on a campaign in Italy. The presence of a hybrid proto-Romance language, if accepted, would reinforce that the authorial group had Mediterranean speech and experience, possibly Catalan, Italian, or Aragonese, in contact with Dominican liturgical prerogatives. Our fourth subject is Kristan of Prachatice, an astronomer, mathematician, and former Catholic priest from medieval Bohemia who converted to the Hussite movement. He lived from 1360 to 1413. He was the author of several books on medicine and herbs, and contributed to the field of astronomy with many articles and data records. Unlike Hartlieb, Kristan of Prachatice, besides being a contemporary of the creation of the Voynich Manuscript, was active and had, throughout his life, important connections that could have motivated the creation of a codex. In 1386, Kristan enrolled at Charles University, where he obtained a bachelor's degree 2 years later and a master's degree in liberal arts in 1290. Later, he taught at the university and counted Jan Hus, known as the reformer of Czech orthography, among his students. In 1403, he served as rector of the Faculty of Arts, and in 1405, as rector of the university. In 1405, he was appointed pastor of the Church of St. Michael, the Archangel, in the old town of Prague. Together with Johannes Cardinalis von Berg-Reichenstein, he participated in the Council of Pisa in 1409. A close friend of Sigismund Albicus of Unichow and Jan Hus, also native to Poshumavi, Kristan of Prachatice also helped finance Jan Hus's studies. He unsuccessfully defended Jan Hus at the Council of Constance, who ended up being a victim of the Inquisition on July 6, 414. Returning to Prague, he served as Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy from 1017. 10 years later, in 1227, he was forced to flee from the radical Hussites. He returned 2 years later and, in 1234, converted back to Catholicism and was again elected rector. Kristan of Prachatice died on September 4, 1430, a victim of the plague epidemic. Each of the possible authors was investigated regarding their motivations for creating the Codex. From now on, be surprised and draw your own conclusions about these investigations. We cannot rule out the possibility that it was he, Roger Bacon, who authored the manuscript. For although he lived long before its physical appearance, Roger Bacon had a provocative and innovative profile. He had reasons to encrypt knowledge, whether to protect heretical ideas, conceal scientific advances, or preserve sensitive information. He was a central figure in medieval science, with profound criticism of scholasticism and reformist fervor. His followers and correspondents included other Franciscans such as Adam Marsh, Robert Grosseteste, and Petrus Peregrinus, who were interested in experimentation, algebra, astrology, and cryptography. This intellectual network sought practical and hidden forms of knowledge, making it plausible that primitive cryptographic techniques, such as the use of hidden syllables or ciphers, were passed on. In the cultural context of the period between 1410 and 1468, Johannes Hartlieb advocated the use of secret letters to conceal contraceptive recipes, abortive methods, or techniques related to fertility and sterility, topics considered taboo or morally dangerous. However, Hartlieb would have had access to occult knowledge, but from an institutionally secure position. It is unlikely that he needed to encode texts to hide them, as his approach was more about systematization and denunciation. Creating an incomprehensible manuscript would have been more out of line with his practical and socially integrated conduct. There are strong reasons to believe that Maria of Castile worked alongside the Dominican nuns in the creation of the manuscript. Female Dominican monasteries were present in several countries, including 6 convents in Bohemia and numerous ones in Spain and Italy since the 14th century. This geographically brings closer the lines of investigation regarding the origin of the manuscript. Cheshire states that the Dominican nuns at Maria's court had sufficient intellectual autonomy to compile a medical astrological compendium, a practice consistent with the liturgical and artistic production of these convents at the end of the Middle Ages. Moreover, Maria of Castile promoted a cultured and politically active female circle, requiring compendiums on health, astrology, and herbal medicine for herself and her isolated female court. Finally, the Dominican nuns, especially in the observant houses, dedicated themselves to literary, liturgical, and illuminated production, with sufficient technical skill to create sophisticated manuscripts. As a scholar with a reformist streak, one foot in science and the other in astrology, Cristiano would have ideological motivation and technical knowledge to propose a cryptographic system as a way to preserve or protect knowledge in the face of censorship or religious persecution. Cristiano of Prachatice, together with his friends Mikuláš of Pelhřimov, Petr Chelčický, and Jan Hus operated in an intellectual reformist court environment where the use of symbolic software, hidden language, religious codes, and subversive literature was valued not only as a practice of resistance but as a survival strategy in times of persecution and censorship. These reformers, active during a period of tension between faith, science, and politics, saw cryptography as a tool to transmit knowledge without the risk of excommunication or civil condemnation. This environment also required protecting medical prescriptions, knowledge of balneology, and female astrology, often associated with pagan or heretical practices. Furthermore, the manuscript may have been conceived as a compendium for a reformist, educated, and philosophical elite who wished to preserve and transmit unofficial knowledge. It is believed that the content circulated among up to 5 collaborators, each responsible for sections such as botany, cosmology, balneotherapy, pharmacology, and astrology, which would explain its modular structure and cohesive complexity. Additionally, there is an emerging and quite promising hypothesis. The manuscript could contain coded references to the Council of Pisa, 1409, a critical event in the Great Western Schism, responsible for attempting to resolve the papal dispute between Rome and Avignon. On pages 99 to 102 of the manuscript, architectural drawings resembling the Tower of Pisa are identified, which may not be mere coincidence. If this association is intentional, it is possible that botanical figures on this page symbolically represent church figures, such as the rival popes and their supporters, in the allegorical form of plants or cosmological diagrams. The tower also appears painted in the colors green, blue, and red, which represent the currents of papal dispute. This line of investigation opens the door to new understandings. The plant and astronomical symbolism may be a coded critique of the fragmentation of religious authority or a strategic manual for political spiritual survival. The Council of Pisa, being a decisive event in the attempt to unify the Church, could have been perceived by the Hussites and Bohemian reformers as either an opportunity or a threat, depending on its outcomes and alliances. The existence of visual references to the tower itself, with its symbolic and geographical weight, reinforces the plausibility of this interpretation. In light of this, the manuscript could be, in part, a hermetic record of ecclesiastical events and ideologies, riddled with codes and metaphors, awaiting a deciphering not only linguistic but also historical and political. The Voynich codes passed through many hands. Some held them for several years, enduring countless attempts at decipherment, while others passed them on briefly. Our investigation will list the owners of the manuscript who, in one way or another, contributed to the growth of the mystery. There are possibilities, although unproven, that the German doctor, botanist, and traveler named Lenhoard Rauwolf, born in Augsburg on June 21st, who lived between 1135 and 1596, was the first known owner of the Voynich Manuscript. He was famous for traveling through the Near East. The purpose of his travels was the search for supplies of herbal medicines. Shortly after his return from the Levant and Mesopotamia, he published a set of new botanical descriptions with an herbarium. Later, he published a general travel narrative about his visit. Therefore, in terms of speculation, his acquisition may have happened around 1565, when he established a medical practice in his hometown, Augsburg, Bavaria, or between the years 1573 and 1575 during his most important journey. Rauwolf died in 1596, and his wife in 1597. Rauwolf's heirs sold the house and all its belongings. It would be logical that Rauwolf's heirs handed over his books to Karl Widemann for sale. This would explain that this manuscript, if it belonged to Rauwolf, was in the barrel of books that Widemann sold to Emperor Rudolf II. The The doctor, writer, and antiquarian from Augsburg, Karl Widemann, lived from 1555 to 1637. He was the secretary between 1587 and 1588 of the English alchemist Edward Kelly at the court of Emperor Rudolf II. He purchased the Voynich Manuscript from the Hartlieb family and sold this manuscript, along with other rare books, to Emperor Rudolf II in 1599. Karl Widemann is known for copying and collecting the works of Paracelsus over more than 30 years. Thanks to this, many unpublished works of Paracelsus have survived to this day. He did the same with the works of Caspar Schwenkfeld and his close colleagues Valentin Krautwald and Adam Reisner. After the death of Helisaeus Röslin in 1616, the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II is the first truly known owner. A single transaction corresponding to the description involving the manuscript and Dr. Raphael, mentioned in Johannes Marci's letter, can be found in the records of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II. In 1599, he bought some rare and notable books from Karl Widemann for 600 florins. This amount was also equivalent to 600 ducats, and today would be equal to $100,000, a high sum for a manuscript, which confirms that the manuscript could have been part of the set of books traded. Jacobus Sinapius, also known by the Latin name Sinapius, was a Czech alchemist of humble origin who became responsible for the royal pharmacy of Prague and a favorite of Emperor Rudolf II of Germany for having cured him of an illness in 1608, having received the noble title decode. The bookseller Wilfrid Voynich saw the writing of a name and the title at the bottom of the first page of the manuscript. However, it was not Voynich who identified the ownership, because although he used chemicals to make it clearer, he was unable to read it. Later, it was revealed by ultraviolet light that it was Sinapius's signature, then compared with other samples. Sinapius is therefore the second known person to have owned the Voynich manuscript, after Emperor Rudolf II. Thus, it is possible to suppose that Sinapius may have received the manuscript from the emperor around the year 1608. The Bohemian Georg Baresch was a collector of antiquities and an alchemist from Prague. Around October 1637, he decided to seek help from Athanasius Kircher in Rome, a Jesuit scholar famous for deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs. Therefore, Baresch's possession of the manuscript may have begun sometime after 1608, after it had passed through Sinapius, and 1637 is the year of the first record of his ownership. Kircher responded politely but somewhat coldly, saying that the content seemed to use a kind of mysterious steganography, and that it required more effort and patience than genius to solve. He admitted that he was too busy to focus on that kind of challenge. Interestingly, he mentions another fragment, apparently written in the same unknown language, and makes a connection with the Illyrian language, saying it was printed with the writing of Saint Jerome, a glagolitic alphabet used in religious texts in the Balkans. These attempts were repeated until 1640 without success. After Baresch's death in 1662, the manuscript was passed to his friend Jan Marek Marci, then rector of Charles University in Prague. He, in turn, sent on August 19, 1065, a letter along with all the notes produced by Baresch in attempts at decipherment and the Voynich manuscript to Athanasius Kircher in Rome. In one said, therefore, Athanasius Kircher, a Jesuit, mathematician, physicist, and German inventor born in Geisa, famous for his versatility of knowledge and particularly for his skill in the natural sciences, received the manuscript. However, despite Baresch's persistent belief that he could decipher the code, he did not present any record capable of progressing in that direction. After Kircher, the manuscript disappeared for approximately 200 years, a period during which it was probably kept in the Jesuit library. It then resurfaced with Giuseppe Strickland at the Jesuit College of Villa Mondragone in Frascati. The Jesuits needed funds to restore the villa and sold Voynich 30 volumes from their library, which consisted of volumes from the Roman College that had been transported to the Mondragone College, along with the General Jesuit Library, to avoid their expropriation by the new Kingdom of Italy. Among these volumes, the enigmatic manuscript reappeared. Thus, the merchant Wilfrid Voynich, who managed one of the largest rare book businesses in the world, became our 9th owner of the then unknown manuscript, it being Voynich's most famous possession, which he declared to have acquired in 1012 at Villa Mondragone in Italy, but only publicly presented in 1915. Voynich attributed the authorship of the manuscript to Roger Bacon, due to his brilliance and temporal proximity to the emergence of the manuscript. Hans Peter Kraus, also known as H.P. Kraus or H.P.K., was an American bookseller born in Austria, described as the most successful and dominant rare book dealer in the world in the second half of the 20th century, and in a league with other rare book dealers such as Bernard Quaritch, Guillaume de Bure, and A.S.W. Rosenbach. Kraus specialized in medieval illuminated manuscripts, incunabula, books printed before 501, and rare books from the 16th and 17th centuries, but he bought and sold almost any book that came his way that was rare, valuable, and important. He prided himself on being the only bookseller in history to have owned a Gutenberg Bible and the Psalters of 1457 and 1459 simultaneously. He bought the enigmatic Voynich manuscript in 1961 for $24,500 and, after 7 years trying unsuccessfully to sell it for up to $160,000, finally donated it to the Beinecke Library at Yale University. The Voynich manuscript stands as one of the greatest enigmas in the history of cryptography and medieval studies. Ever since it was rediscovered by Wilfrid Voynich in 1912, the manuscript has drawn scholars, code breakers, and enthusiasts into a relentless quest for its meaning. Over 80 distinct attempts to decipher its mysterious script have been recorded, each offering a unique perspective and, at times, sparking heated academic debate. The earliest bold theory emerged in 1921 when William Newbold, a professor of medieval philosophy, argued that the visible text was a mere facade. According to Newbold, the true meaning lay hidden in microscopic markings embedded within the letters, containing secret Latin messages. He even attributed the work to the legendary Roger Bacon, suggesting that the manuscript revealed knowledge of astrophysics and molecular biology centuries ahead of its time. However, his theory, though imaginative, was ultimately dismissed as arbitrary, lacking concrete evidence. The 1940s saw renewed interest, with Joseph Martin Feely and Lionel C. Strong attempting to decode the manuscript by searching for Latin characters within blank spaces. Feely published his findings, reinforcing the Bacon hypothesis, but the results failed to provide a coherent translation. In 1945, the renowned American cryptographers William and Elizabeth Friedman established the first Voynich manuscript study group. Their rigorous analysis detected patterns and repetitions, suggesting a possible artificial language, but they were unable to unlock its semantic content. Their conclusion, that the text might be a constructed language with no clear meaning, would influence subsequent research for decades. Between the 1950s and 1970s, skepticism grew. Robert Brumbaugh and Gordon Rugg theorized that the Voynich Manuscript might be a clever medieval hoax, crafted to profit from the popularity of esoteric texts among European nobility. Adding to this perspective, William Ralph Bennett in 1976 applied statistical methods to show the manuscript's vocabulary was extremely limited, resembling the low informational entropy of the Hawaiian language. This, he argued, pointed to an intentionally simplified language, possibly created for satirical or deceptive purposes. John Stoico, in 1978, proposed that the text was Ukrainian written without vowels. He translated several passages such as, "The void is that for which the eye of the small god fights." But his interpretations failed to connect the text with the manuscript's abundant illustrations. In 1987, Leo Levitov introduced a new hypothesis, claiming the manuscript was of Cathar origin, written in a blend of medieval Central European languages. Yet, his theory faltered under scrutiny, unable to withstand linguistic or cultural analysis. The search for botanical clues gained momentum in 2008 when Edith and Erica Sherwood identified 124 plant species among the illustrations, associating almost all figures with medieval European flora. While their identification rate was impressive, critics noted that their methodology relied too heavily on visual associations, particularly the depiction of roots, which are seldom used in modern botany for plant identification. In 2017, Nicholas Gibbs suggested the manuscript was a medical gynecological compendium, written in simplified Latin and linked to texts like the Trotula. Media coverage was extensive, but academic criticism swiftly followed, exposing flaws in Gibbs's approach and conclusions. 2 years later, Gerard Cheshire claimed to have deciphered the script as a proto-Romance language, suggesting the text chronicled herbal remedies, therapeutic baths, and astrological readings relevant to women's health. He contextualized the manuscript within Mediterranean convents and mentioned historical figures such as Maria of Castile. Nevertheless, leading experts like Lisa Fagan Davis and Gordon Rugg dismissed Cheshire's theory as speculative and methodologically unsound. The last few years have seen remarkable advances. In 2024, researchers Keegan Brewer and Michelle L. Lewis interpreted the Voynich manuscript as a ciphered archive of female knowledge, possibly connected to the clandestine transmission of contraceptive and abortive recipes in medieval Europe, echoing the censorship of such secrets by figures like Johannes Hartlieb. Most notably, a research team at the University of Alberta harnessed artificial intelligence, training a model on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 380 languages. Their analysis revealed that 80% of Voynich vocabulary corresponds to Hebrew, encrypted using letter scrambling techniques known as alphagrams. Partial translations have emerged, such as the phrase, "She made recommendations for the priest, the man of the house, to me and to the people." The application of AI now fuels optimism that a full decipherment may be within reach, promising to unravel the centuries-old mysteries of the Voynich manuscript at last. The Voynich manuscript stands as one of history's most tantalizing puzzles, an artifact that has endured centuries without surrendering its secrets. From the moment it emerged, its unknown author, mysterious script, and perplexing illustrations have beckoned scholars, cryptographers, and dreamers alike. Today, we explore 3 pillars supporting this enigmatic monument: the possible hands that crafted its pages, the guardians who held it through time, and the relentless efforts to decipher its impossible language. Speculation swirls around figures such as Johannes Hartlieb, a physician and scholar whose connections to coded texts make him a candidate for authorship. But new avenues of inquiry suggest intriguing alternatives, like Kristan of Prachatice, whose life and work intersect with the manuscript's timeline in unexpected ways. The question of ownership is equally shrouded in mystery, with a lineage of collectors and custodians stretching from Renaissance libraries to modern universities. Each transition adds another layer of intrigue, as the book's presence seems to inspire both fascination and secrecy. Attempts to decode its script have ranged from mathematical algorithms to linguistic analysis, yet the text resists every effort. Some believe the language is an elaborate cipher. Others maintain it may be a sophisticated hoax, and yet more search for meaning hidden in the very structure of its words. Even the manuscript's images, strange plants, cosmological diagrams, and beating women, hint at knowledge just out of reach, their symbolism as impenetrable as the script itself. Now the investigation turns to you. Abandon the beaten paths, set aside failed methodologies, and approach this riddle as an explorer. Are there patterns in the illustrations that have yet to be noticed? Could cultural context or forgotten lore provide new clues? The Voynich Manuscript is a mirror, reflecting each mind that studies it. Perhaps your perspective will illuminate a new possibility and bring us one step closer to unraveling its secrets. Enter the curious universe of the Curious Order.